Hey guys, hoping all is well with everyone. So in this video we're going to be continuing the read-along of the Crime Traveler's Adventure Series, Book 1, Brainwashed by Paul Aertker. And the last time we finished Chapter 21, so we'll be starting with Chapter 22 today. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoy the video. Chapter 22, The Last Best Hiding Place. Lucas Beans lay in the daybed in the back room of the Le Gris in Paris, dreaming about a past that he was starting to remember. If he could travel in his mind, he might travel in time and remember the details that could point him to whatever it was he was looking for. With his eyes closed, Lucas listened. He could hear people in the store, shopping and talking. The smell of fresh bread was somewhere close by. Outside, a mixture of city sounds. Trucks and cars and cafes crept into the shop every time the door opened. The cash register dinged, and Lucas opened his eyes, sat up in bed, and looked at the clock. Almost 9 o'clock. He had slept 13 hours straight. Lucas got up and moved toward the bread smell. Someone had left him a plate of chocolate croissants and a jar of pineapple juice. Probably Fatima. As he ate, his father's compliment on the airplane came back to him. You're man enough to know when to break a rule to help someone in need, and that takes courage. If Lucas was ever going to stand up for what was right and stand up against what was wrong, now was the time. The good company had killed his mothers, and now his sister and friends had been kidnapped and possibly could be getting brainwashed. He felt overwhelmed by the choices he had to make, but was he, Lucas Beans, going to go back and sit on an airplane with Coach Creed and wait and hope that everything would be just fine? No. No way. Lucas walked into the main part of the African store and saw Fatima carrying the baby. Gini looked cute dressed in a blue and red African fabric with her head wrapped in a polka-dotted cloth. He knew it would be easier just to leave Gini with the Senegalese woman, but his heart told him otherwise. And his heart had been a pretty good guide so far. He took Gini from Fatima and said thank you. One of Lucas's greatest strengths was his map memory. He literally knew the streets of Paris like the lines on his hand. More than that, Lucas had a catalog of other maps in his head. He knew the layouts of museums, cemeteries, and even the Paris sewer system. Since there were cameras everywhere tracking his every move, Lucas knew he had to get out of sight. He felt like he had an edge over Coach Creed, Magnus, and the others because of the maps in his head. When he opened the door, the map he needed bloomed in his mind. The last best hiding place in Paris was underground in the catacombs. Chapter 23, The Empire of Death. The catacombs would take him off the streets and off the security cameras. He would enter one of the burial chambers that tourists can visit. Then he would sneak into the closed areas, go dark for a couple of hours, and come out later. This time he knew he would be running from Magnus and his guards, and from Coach Creed. Holding Gini almost like a ball, Lucas ran, dodging cars and buses. His heart felt like it might explode. Then he remembered a shortcut, and it was close. The gravesites of Montparnasse Cemetery looked like miniature stone houses with iron gates. The concrete vaults lined both sides of the gravel paths, allowing for the least amount of light. About halfway into the cemetery, Lucas heard voices coming from somewhere. He and Gini stepped into a little tomb house. The inside of the concrete crypt was stale. The guy had been dead for at least 100 years. No living person had set foot in a tomb vault in at least a decade. A plastic bouquet of flowers on the floor was drenched in dust. On his tippy toes, Lucas peered through the iron bars in the window to see if he could tell where the voices were coming from. He eyed two men in ratty clothes who, sitting on the tomb of Samuel Beckett, seemed to be waiting on somebody. Farther down, some women were taking photographs of man-raised tomb. Gini picked up the plastic bouquet of flowers and shook the dust. As the sound of boots crunching on gravel grew closer, Lucas scooped the baby up, opened the gate, and hurried down a long pathway to the edge of Satri's tomb. "Huis clos," said Lucas as he read the sign. "That's bad luck," he said. Gini said, "Bad." "Could be," said Lucas. Huis Claus is a book. In English, it's called No Exit. It took less than 10 minutes for him to find the next ominous sign. They walked up the sidewalk, hugging the stone wall of the cemetery, and then crossed the street. Lucas stretched his head and scratched it, trying to read the writing. Gini dropped the bouquet of plastic and dusty flowers. Then she aped Lucas by scratching her head. The sign above the door was written in French. It read, Aertker, si est el empereur de la mort. That means, he explained to Gini, stop. It is here, the Empire of Death. With the map of the catacombs now fully formed in his head, Lucas pushed open the door and dropped into the burial chamber. A long screech echoed down the corridor and bounced off a distant wall. As the door slammed shut, the echo faded in a faraway dead-end tunnel. He scored 1 point for himself. He had successfully lost Magnus and everyone else. Now he needed to exit the other side of the catacombs and get to the Currukian safehouse to find his sister and friends. This was the most important thing in his life right now. Lucas and Gini walked deeper into the catacombs, and it became darker and darker with each step. They passed a group of Italians laughing and squeezed past a German family with wide, white eyes. Before long, the sound of Lucas's shoes grating on the sandy floor was the only noise. The air in the next passageway was crisp and dry. Lucas and Gini stopped under one of the few light bulbs hanging from the ceiling, and Lucas's eyes adjusted. In the distance, a door slammed shut. Lucas squeezed Gini to his hip and took off fast as he could. He didn't even look where he was going. Light bulbs flickered overhead, giving Lucas a sense that the walls were breathing. It didn't take long before they were in the darkest part of the tunnel. He stopped and froze. His pupils swelled and his heart pounded in his throat. The walls in the tunnel were made of bones. Human bones. Thousands of them, all piled neatly on top of one another. Lucas couldn't allow himself to get scared. Not now. He had to keep thinking about everybody else. He knew the only way these weird bones wouldn't freak him out is if he were to touch the wall. Slowly, Lucas ran his palm across the bones. Gini copied him. "Ooh," she moaned. They were surrounded by thousands of dead people. Millions of bones stacked from floor to ceiling. Thick arm and leg bones formed the base of the walls. On top of the mountain of large bones, about 2 feet up the wall, were the smaller bones of the arms and legs, followed by the tiny ribs. Lucas pushed deeper into the burial chamber. He and Gini crept down the corridors, past blocked-off areas, over broken barricades, through sections that were pitch black. Dirty water began to drip from the skulls in the ceiling above their heads. They came to a dead end lit by a tiny light bulb. Some skulls stuck out farther than others. On one wall, a grouping of heads formed an X. In another section, the skulls formed a cross on its side. He couldn't help but wonder about all these people, and why they had been buried here. Lucas sat and leaned his head against a skull. He and Gini would be off the grid for a couple of hours. He closed his eyes and waited. He might have dozed off, but it wasn't long before he was startled by a sound somewhere close by. "Everyone else is cooperating," Magnus said, his voice sounding hollow in the cave. "Yeah," Eki said. "Looks like you dropped your bouquet of flowers, too." "Lucas," Magnus said, "there's only one way out of here." For most of the people, that was true. Lucas knew the main door was the only official exit. But Lucas also knew that there was a tunnel that connected the catacombs with the Paris sewer system. In his brain, he overlapped the two maps. The only thing left to do was to find the opening. He read the graffiti on the wall. Written in charcoal on the top of a skull were the same words he had seen in the cemetery. Lucas muttered, "Huis Claus." Gini said, "No exit." Lucas looked at the little girl like she was the smartest kid ever. "You're right, but the sign's not. There's a sewer tunnel just behind these skulls." Lucas put Gini on the ground and removed several skulls from the wall until he could see sunlight. A long and constricted tunnel led straight to a manhole in the street. Lucas heard city sounds of people talking and walking and cars honking coming from the street above. He removed a few more skulls so he could see the passageway. Then was when he saw the real problem. The opening through which he had to pass was lined from the top to bottom with skulls. Cracked, mossy, rotten human heads. He could still hear Magnus and Ecke talking and getting closer. He picked Gini up and started crawling into the cranium cave. Gini held onto Lucas's neck like a baby monkey on its father. Lucas followed two small beams of light coming from the sewer cover. The air became murky with a putrid stench, as bugs of some kind ran in and out of the eye sockets of the skull floor. A minute later, Lucas muscled the manhole cover out of the way. He pushed Gini's bottom up and set her on the street. Cars honked and swerved. Lucas climbed from the sewer, snatched Gini up, and slid the manhole cover back into place. Then they dodged the traffic and headed to the sidewalk. At the next intersection, Magnus's words came back to him. "Everyone else is cooperating." Lucas knew it had to be a ploy or a lie, or both. Sophia's instructions had been, if all else fails, get to the safe house. But that was yesterday, or the day before. He couldn't remember. It struck Lucas that if he went to the new Resistance safe house, no one would be there, because they had been captured by the Currukians and the Good Company guards. Coach had said Astrid and Jackknife and all the others had been taken to the Currukian safe house. But which one? Hervé had said you had to watch out for Lay. At the intersection, Lucas and Gini came to a metro station. They went down the stairs. Lucas rememorized the metro map and bought a ticket with the euros from his father's change bowl. For 38 minutes, he and Gini rode the purple line toward the Sacred Heart Basilica neighborhood, where Lucas hoped to find his sister and friends at the closest Currukian safe house. And I'll stop the video there, ending chapter 23. But again, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please take good care of yourselves and be safe, and I look forward to seeing you in our next continuation of the Crime Travelers Adventure series, Brainwashed. Take good care, guys, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.